happy, blended, learning, day 7. Oh my gosh, we're all over this. Pretty sure we're all over this blended learning. Review problems. Make sure to write it down on a separate piece of paper. I'll be checking this tomorrow in class. You either have the points, you don't have the points. You do not get to make up points. You should be trying these problems by yourself because we are going to be having a test pretty darn soon. So I want you to graph this and state the domain and range. So I'm graphing this. This right here is going to move it to the right 2. This is opposite. Move it up 7. Right 3, up 7. So I make my table right 3, up 7. Now this is where you can use your calculator to find out other points that you can use. 4 will give me a perfect square of 1, which would give me 8 when I plug 4 into that equation. I can also use 7 when I plug that into the equation to give me 9. So graphing this equation, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I have 1 here, 3, 4 to 8, 5, 6, 7 to 9. So my graph should look something like that. My domain here, if I look, I'm starting at this point and I'm going to the right forever, so x is greater than or equal to 3. My range here, I'm looking at this point, starting at that point, and then I'm going up. I went up forever, so y is greater than or equal to 7. Next, graph this. State domain and range. So pause and try to do it by yourself first. So first, this is going to move it nothing. So over here on my table, I'll put 0. This is going to move it up 4. This will flip it, and this will stretch it. Flip, stretch. So then I can plug it into my table to figure out what my other numbers are. And you should have got this for your table. And if I were to graph this, here are my points. That's my graph. Make sure it goes on forever. My domain, if I look here, x is moving to the right, so x is getting greater than or equal to 0. Always looking at this point. This is the point that references your domain and range. My range, my y, it's moving down. If it's moving down, that means y is getting less than or equal to 4, because that's my y value. Next. Here's your next one. You should try to solve by yourself. Try to solve by yourself. So pause the video, try to do it by yourself. Do not combine these. Do not combine these. Take care of this first. This is a positive 5, so I'm going to get rid of positive 5 by subtracting 5. This becomes a negative 2. That subtraction still stays with that negative 2 right there, 2/3. It's equal to, this is going to give me a negative 32. Divide by negative 2. Divide by negative 2. So I have x minus 4 raised to the 2/3 power would be equal to negative 16. You want to get rid of that 2/3 power, so you're going to raise it to the 3/2. And by negative, I meant to say positive 16. Oh, but I can't erase that. So this is a positive 16. Sorry, negative divided by negative should be a positive. So raise this to the 3/2 power. And the thing I notice, this is even. So when I put that into my calculator, I'm going to be getting 2 numbers. When you write your answer, so 16 raised to the 3/2 power, you should be getting 2 answers. So I have x minus 4 is equal to positive negative 64. This is where you should write out 2 separate equations so that you don't forget. X minus 4 equals 64. X minus 4 equals negative 64. So you have 2 answers. Just move this up a little bit. And then we get x is equal to add 4 here, 68. X is equal to add 4 here, negative 60. You should pause the video and try to do these two by yourself, subtracting and adding, subtracting and adding. So the first one's adding. You don't have to really do anything with that, but you do have to combine your like terms here. So your answer should have been x squared minus 9x, negative 10 plus 1 would give me negative 9. Negative 24 minus 12 would give me negative 36. So that would be the answer to the adding question. Here you have to distribute your negative to both points or both terms in your equation, leaving you with a negative x plus 12. So you have x squared, these two combine to get a negative 11x, these two combine to get a negative 12x. That's your adding and subtracting. Same two equations, but now you're multiplying and dividing. So you should pause the video and try to attempt to do multiplying and dividing by yourself. Multiplying, that's what it should look like when you actually write out the multiplying. I like to do the box method when it's a 3 by 2. You don't have to do the box method. So this becomes x cubed negative 12x squared. So I'm multiplying to get inside the box. Multiplying to get inside the box, 120x. This becomes a positive because it's a negative times a negative. Negative 24x, and I don't know what 12 times 24 is, so give me a second. 288, so this is a positive 288. The nice thing about my box method is your diagonals should be like terms. If they're not, you might have done something wrong. Negative 22x, when I combine those like terms, this is going to give me a positive 96x. Oh, sorry, this one should be squared, plus 288. Now the thing, what I did is once I knew this was x, and this also said x. These two should not be the same. Once you write your answer, these are already your like terms. These should not be the same once you write them out. Dividing. So I actually have to factor this. So numbers that multiply to get negative 24. And since it's negative, adding to get a negative, you should put one negative, just one. So these two add together to get a negative 10. So I can factor this by x minus 12 on top, and then I have my x plus 2 and x minus 12 on bottom. You have to find your domain restriction. X plus 2 cannot equal 0. X minus 12 cannot equal 0. So x cannot equal, if I get that by itself, negative 2 and positive 12. These two cancel each other out, leaving me with 1 over x plus 2 as my final answer. And these are the final two I want you to do, Fog and Goff. Last ones on your piece of paper. So this first one, I'm going to write out my function of f. So I have 2x minus 3. My function of g, negative x squared plus 4. Function of g is on the inside, so that gets my big box. Function of f is on the outside, that gets my little box. So replacing your box, this says 2 times box. So replacing the input with negative x squared plus 4. You still have the minus 3. So again, the 2 times x minus 3. You're replacing this inside your x. Distribute. This becomes a negative 2x squared plus 8 minus 3. So my final answer would be negative 2x squared plus 5. Bing, bada, boom. And over here, I'm first going to evaluate this. So this one started with an x. So my answer had an x in the answer. This one starts with a number. I should get a number out. So first looking at my function of f at negative 1. So here's my function of f, and this is saying x is equal to negative 1. So you plug negative 1 in for x. So this will give me, oops, I don't know why I had that parenthesis there, a negative 5. Negative 2 minus 3 is a negative 5. So this whole thing is equal to negative 5. So now it's saying plug negative 5 into the function of g. Now you have to be careful with this problem. This says negative, and then in parentheses, negative 5 squared plus 4. So if you did this, you have to make sure to have parentheses around just the negative 5. That becomes a negative 25 plus 4 because you are multiplying by this negative once you square it. So my final answer would be a negative 21. There you go. Blended Learning Day, number 7. I hope there's no more of these. Joe Shimoda. Have a great day.